Imagine a world where one city ruled over millions, its roads stretching across continents, its legions unbeatable. This was Rome at its zenith in the 2nd century AD, under emperors like Trajan and Hadrian spanning from Britain to the Middle East. But beneath this golden age, cracks were forming. What if I told you the fall of this mighty empire wasn't just one event, but a cascade of disasters over centuries? Join me on Visual History as we unravel the secrets of Rome's downfall, a tale of hubris, invasion, and transformation that still echoes in our world today. Pause, let's step back to the empire's peak and see how the mighty began to stumble. By the 3rd century AD, Rome's golden era was fading. The empire, once fueled by conquests, now faced crippling economic woes. Inflation soared as emperors debased the currency, mixing cheap metals into coins to pay endless wars. Trade routes, vital for grain from Egypt and luxury from the east, were plagued by pirates and raids. Pause for emphasis, farmers abandoned lands, fleeing heavy taxes that funded a bloated bureaucracy and army. Cities swelled with unemployed masses, leading to riots and unrest. Diocletian tried reforms in 284 AD, capping prices and dividing the empire into east and west for better control. But these were bandages on a hemorrhaging giant. The seeds of decay were sown deep, much like how modern economies teeter on inflation and debt today. Politics in Rome turned toxic. The Praetorian Guard, meant to protect the emperor, became kingmakers, assassinating rulers on whims. From 235 to 284 AD, the crisis of the 3rd century saw over 20 emperors rise and fall, many murdered. Civil wars fractured loyalty as generals vied for the throne. Corruption festered, senators amassed fortunes while the state crumbled. It's a stark reminder of how power vacuums invite chaos, akin to today's political upheavals. Yet amid this turmoil, strongmen like Aurelian briefly restored order in the 270s, walling Rome anew. But stability was fleeting. The empire's vast size, once its strength, now stretched resources thin, leaving the West vulnerable. Rome's military, the empire's backbone, began to weaken. Once invincible, legions were diluted by recruiting barbarians, Germanic tribes like the Goths and Vandals, who served as mercenaries but often lacked Roman discipline. Overextension meant garrisons were spread too thin along the Rhine and Danube frontiers. Plagues like the Antonine in 165 AD decimated ranks, while civil wars diverted troops from borders. By the 4th century, the army focused on internal threats over external ones. Emperor Valentinian I in 364 AD fortified defenses, but it was too late. This decline mirrors how superpowers today face overstretch. Fighting too many fronts leaves the homeland exposed. From the north, waves of invaders crashed against Rome's borders. The Huns, led by Attila centuries later, but starting with the Goths fleeing Hunnic pressure in 376 AD, sought refuge within Roman lands. Emperor Valens granted it, but mistreatment sparked the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, where Goths annihilated the Eastern army, killing Valens himself. Pause for drama, this defeat shattered Rome's aura of invincibility. More tribes followed: Vandals, Suebi, Alans. The barbarian migrations overwhelmed defenses. These weren't mindless hordes. They were peoples displaced by climate shifts and pressures, much like modern refugee crises straining borders. To manage the chaos, Diocletian split administrative rule in 285 AD, creating the Tetrarchy, 4 co-emperors. But after his retirement, it fractured further. In 395 AD, Theodosius I's death permanently divided the empire, west for his son Honorius, east for Arcadius. The east, with richer Constantinople, thrived as Byzantium. The west, poorer and more exposed, crumbled under invasions. This division highlights how size can be a curse. Empires too big to govern cohesively, like sprawling corporations today facing regional breakdowns. A beacon of change emerged with Constantine the Great. In 312 AD, before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, he saw a vision of the Kairos symbol and won, crediting the Christian god. He legalized Christianity via the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, shifting Rome from pagan roots. By 380 AD, Theodosius made it the state religion. This transformation unified the empire spiritually but alienated traditionalists and strained resources on church building. Christianity's rise, born from persecuted sect to power, parallels how ideologies reshape nations, offering hope amid decline, yet accelerating cultural shifts. In the West, emperors like Honorius 395 to 423 AD were puppets, ruled by generals like Stilicho. Childish and indecisive, Honorius ignored warnings while Alaric's Visigoths ravaged Italy. Stilicho, half-Vandal himself, defended valiantly but was betrayed and executed in 408 AD. Pa's power plays continued. The empire contracted, losing Britain in 410 AD as legions withdrew. Honorius's court in Ravenna became a bubble of denial, much like leaders today detached from frontline realities hastening collapse. Enter Alaric, king of the Visigoths, a former Roman ally turned foe. Seeking lands and pay, he besieged Rome 3 times from 408 to 410 AD. Famine and betrayal weakened the city. Slaves opened gates for plunder. Pause on August 24, 410 AD, Alaric's forces poured in not to destroy but to loot. This wasn't total annihilation, but the psychological blow was immense. For the first time in 800 years, Rome fell to a foreign enemy. Alaric's humanity spared temples and spared lives, yet the event symbolized the empire's twilight. The sack unfolded in horror. For 3 days, looters stripped Rome of treasures, gold from temples, silver from homes. Churches under Christian protection were spared much destruction. Alaric died soon after in 410 AD, buried in a diverted riverbed. Pause for drama. The news shocked the world. St. Augustine wrote City of God to console believers, arguing earthly empires pale beside divine ones. This climax wasn't the end. The Western Empire limped on for decades, but it marked the irreversible fracture. Rome's fall was the crescendo of centuries of strain, a turning point where the ancient world yielded to the medieval. After 410 AD, the West fragmented. Vandals sacked Rome again in 455 AD, reaching North Africa. By 476 AD, the last emperor Romulus Augustulus was deposed by Odoacer, a barbarian king. The Eastern Empire endured as Byzantium until 1453. Rome's fall birthed new kingdoms, Ostrogoths in Italy, Franks in Gaul. Latin evolved into Romance languages, Roman law influenced Europe. It wasn't oblivion, but reinvention, much like how fallen tech giants spawned startups. Christianity spread, preserving knowledge in monasteries. The Dark Ages weren't so dark, they were a bridge to the Renaissance. Rome's fall teaches us resilience. Empires rise and fall, but ideas endure. Infrastructure, governance, culture shape our world. Today, as nations grapple with migration, inequality, and division, Rome's story warns of complacency's cost and innovation's power. What empires in your life need tending? Thanks for joining this visual history journey. If this tale of triumph and tragedy inspired you, subscribe for more deep dives into the past that illuminate the present. Share your thoughts below. What historical fall fascinates you next? Until then, keep exploring history's endless story.